Prosecutors are threatening Western companies, meanwhile, with asset seizures or arrests if any corporate leaders in Russia criticize the government. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham joined me yesterday on Sunday Morning Future, slamming the administration's response to this conflict. Watch.
It is deplorable to me, dishonorable, that we would not give 28 fighter jets to the Ukrainians to defend their skies against Russian aggression. The Biden administration stopped that transfer. 1 minute they're saying they're not using the planes we have, but if we give them more, it'd be World War III. So what happened is that Putin threatened Biden, and he folded like a cheap suit. Give them the planes. The speech in Poland by the vice president is not an adequate substitute by MiGs going into the Ukraine to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. So I'm all in. I don't want no boots on the ground, no fly zone yet. But if there are chemical weapons used by Putin, that's a war crime, then I support a no-fly zone.
Joining me right now is Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. He is a member of the Armed Services Committee and an Air Force veteran himself. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. What do you make of this pushback on sending the the jets from Poland to Ukraine? They need Air Force cover, right?
Well, Maria, I agree with Senator Graham. It's odd to me that Joe Biden continues to draw these arbitrary red lines on himself, which reduce his flexibility and limit his latitude. I mean, the president of the United States isn't deterring Vladimir Putin. He's allowing Vladimir Putin to deter him. And you need, when in this kind of situations, you want to have deliberate ambiguity to keep your adversary guessing. So we should have provided those 28 planes. If we needed to transfer them to Poland, to Germany, and then to the Ukraine, that's fine. But it was as if the administration was trying to position it like we were going to, fly hot missions into the Ukraine, which we were not.
Yeah, but I mean, what is the line to draw in terms of not turning this into World War III? I mean, look at what's happening in Iran. Why is the administration working with Russia to get back into the Iran deal? Now Iran's top security official says that it will stay in the nuclear talks until, quote, a strong deal is reached. The U.S. says it would save the agreement by excluding Russia if Moscow is persistent with its demands. But up until now, we are still seeing Russia act on behalf of the United States to get the U.S. back into this Russia deal. So how do you walk that line of saying you denounce what Russia is doing, but you're willing to work with them on an Iran deal?
No, I mean, what a sane administration would do is immediately cease and desist all negotiations with the Iranians. Number one, Russia should have nothing to do with our talks there, and we shouldn't even have those talks unless the Iranians agree to cease and desist from exporting weapons to terrorists. I mean, the number one state sponsor of terrorism in the world is Iran. Getting back to Russia, there's absolutely no way that we should allow them to. I mean, they've invaded a sovereign nation, and we need to do everything we can to supply the Ukrainians. Where the line is in a proxy fight like this, we won't have direct contact with American troops and Russian troops. But we can provide the Ukrainians with war materials, and Joe Biden has dragged his feet on that, and it doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, in the meantime, American families are feeling the pinch because of the price of gasoline and oil, but the administration is not going back to American producers. I mean, you're in Texas. Tell me about the potential for Texas to fill these holes rather than going to Iran, going to Venezuela, going to the Saudis.
Think about what Joe Biden has just said. He doesn't want to deal with Vladimir Putin and buy his energy, and he was dragging his feet there too. We had pretty much unanimity on the Hill to cease, don't buy any more Russian oil. Well, he's canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. He's, they're dragging their feet, and they're making it very difficult for the energy sector to drill on federal lands and offshore. He won't consider opening up the Anwar Reserve, and we have plenty of energy in Texas. But he'd rather go to mini Putins, like you just said, people that hate us, like Venezuela or Iran, or others, when we can produce it here. We were energy independent, and Joe Biden fumbled that ball. We need to pick that ball back up and run to the goal line.
I don't understand this, Congressman. Here's Ken Mahoney. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you for your service, first off. And again, obviously, it's pretty alarming that the red line keeps moving. It's like a goalpost that keeps moving back, so you never achieve it. Again, with your experience, though, what's the end game here for Putin? Where does this end? Where do we kind of, break this whole cycle of civilians getting killed and the awful images that we see? When does this war end? And what is Putin going to gain out of all this?
Well, Ken, you got to think of Putin as a mob boss. And he doesn't necessarily want to make the Ukraine part of Russia, but he certainly wants the Ukraine to be in their sphere of influence. So he wants he wants to appoint a capo, if you will, take out Zelensky, appoint a capo, and have, just like he does in Belarus. I mean, Belarus just does the bidding of their master in Moscow. And that's, I think, what he's after. Hammer them, demoralize them, and occupy them just briefly, and then put in a puppet regime. That's the end game. Now, what our end game should be is to arm the Ukrainians to the teeth with not only the javelins to take out the tanks and the harpoons that are anti-ship missiles, but stingers, but also some asymmetrical warfare like sniper rifles, plastic explosives, anti-tank mines, the American version of the RPG, and make Russia bleed white. If they want a war of attrition, that's fine. A Russian tank costs between $4 and $8 million. A Stinger costs about 100. I'm sorry, a javelin costs about 100 grand, 175 grand. And we can do that, but we need the will to do so. And we need Joe Biden to lead, and not lead from behind, but lead from the front.
Yeah. So what else do you want to see in terms of the response to Ukraine right now, Congressman?
I want to make it American policy to be clear that we're going to stand with them, because if we don't, Maria, we're going to end up with too many other nation states looking at a post-America world where they feel that America won't stand by its friends and allies, and they'll cut the best deal they can with China, and it'll be the 21st century will be the China century and not continue to be the American one. And that's what I fear.
Congressman, thanks very much for your insights and for your service to this great country. Congressman Pat Fallon joining us this morning in Texas. Thank you, sir.